Gods are insanely powerful beings almost everywhere. Movies, games, myths, you name it. Gods are usually at the top of the elemental food chain, and the same goes for Runeterra. Most of the strongest character lists in Runeterra are full of gods like Volibear, Ornn, the Kindred, Aurelion, Bard, etc. But even though they're the most powerful beings, that doesn't mean they're invincible. And that's why, in this video, I'm going to talk about human champions who are capable of killing gods. Before we start, it's important to explain how the rules are going to work. First, what am I considering as a god? Basically, I'm counting as gods. The aspects, Ascended, Darkens, Celestials, Freljordian demigods, and super crazy spirits like primordial demons and the Voidborn. You could argue that Ascended and Darkens aren't exactly gods, but like, the Ascended are literally called god warriors, and they went through a process called ascension. So for me, that's enough. I divided the champions into three categories. First, there's the champs that might be able to kill gods. These are the ones that have the potential, but we can't be sure, either because they don't have enough feats or because it would be a toss-up fight, like 50-50. Second, the champs that would definitely be able to kill gods. These are the ones who obviously can, either because they've already done it or their power level is just that crazy. Third, honorable mentions. Just random mentions I want to make. Alright, let's go. Starting with the ones that might be able to do it. First up, Swain. Swain is a character that I even thought about putting in the top tier of strongest humans, but I held back for one simple reason. We don't know how his power actually works. We know that his power is all about secrets and that kind of stuff, and he's probably kinda omniscient in Nexus. His demon is probably a primordial one. A single primordial demon managed to wreck the celestial realm. So, if Swain really does have a primordial demon, he's super strong, but we don't know how his power works. Like, the claw thing he uses in-game, is that all he does in lore? Does he just kill whoever's in front of him, or could he, I don't know, destroy a mountain? We have zero clue. He doesn't have combat feats, so there's no way to properly rank him. Also, we can't really be sure how his contract with the demon works. It's probably not the same as with Tahm Kench, because Riot's not going to repeat the same thing. So even if he's got a primordial demon, he might not be using its full power. We just don't know how strong he really is. But he does have the potential to fight gods. And when I say gods, I'm not talking about like the really crazy ones. I'm saying that at most, he could maybe take on an Ascended, like Nexus, but that's his limit. He ain't getting past that. Anyway, moving on. Next up, Qiyana. She's really strong. Qiyana was considered the most talented mage in Ixaucan, which is a society where magic is part of everyday life, and the most powerful mages are the ones who get to rule. So being strong is literally the goal for most people there, and being the strongest among all those mages, that's a big deal. Just so you get the idea, back in the peak of Shurima, when Ixaucan was still under Shuriman rule, there was this one mage who stood out so much that he got chosen for Ascension. Like, a dude who wasn't even from Shurima got to ascend. That's how OP he was. And Qiyana's given the title of being even more prodigious and insane than that guy. So yeah, being the most talented mage in Ixaucan is a huge thing. But anyway, despite all that and how ridiculously strong she is, I don't think she'd stand a chance against really powerful Ascended. But against some weaker ones? Yeah, I think she could take them. Now, against any god stronger than your average Ascended, like a Freljordian demigod or something, she wouldn't even get to click. Not even worth mentioning. Alright, moving on. Next is Silas. Silas's strength depends entirely on the magic he's stolen recently. I'd rank him kinda around Qiyana's level, but only if he's got some really good magic in his hands. We don't really know the limits of his magic stealing ability, but it's probably not like he can just copy anything. Like, he can't just steal Aurelion Sol's magic and blow up Runeterra. So, depending on who he's up against, he might not even be able to use their powers properly. Also, we don't even know if he can take magic from different sources, since, in case you didn't know, Runeterra has a ton of different types of magic. If he can only use arcane magic, then his chances go way down. Plus, there's the whole skill thing too. When he steals magic from someone like Garen, Garen doesn't even understand what's happening, so Silas has the upper hand. But imagine if he steals magic from someone like Nexus or Xerath. Those dudes have thousands of years of experience. He'd just get absolutely gapped and wouldn't be able to do anything. Maybe he could take down a weak Ascended, but someone like Nexus? No chance. And anything above Ascended? Nah, forget it. Alright, moving on. Now we got Master Yi. This one's complicated, because there are people who say that since he struggled against Kayn, he wouldn't have the power to kill any god. But first, let's remember that Kayn does have Darken power. Not fully, but still. Also, in that situation, there was more at stake than just beating Kayn. There were other people around, and Yi couldn't go all out without risking collateral damage. So I'd say it really depends on the matchup for Yi to have a chance. If he goes up against something like Renekton, he's gonna get clapped. But if he fights a weak Ascended, like some random mage Ascended 2.0, maybe with some insane Wuju speed blitz, he'd have a shot, but still, anything above Ascended, he wouldn't stand a chance. Next up is Vladimir. Vlad already absorbed the body of a Darken to boost his blood magic, so right now the guy is pretty powerful. Not like on the level of a Darken, but it's still a decent boost. Plus, out of all the characters I've talked about so far, he's probably the one with the most knowledge about how Ascended and Darken powers work. That'd give him an edge in a fight. I think he'd actually have a decent shot against Ascended, but again, beyond beyond that, nope. He didn't even come close to soloing the Darkin he absorbed, so it's hard to believe that he's gotten that much stronger since then. So yeah, I'd say he's got a good shot against Ascended, but that's his ceiling. Next up, we got Karma. Karma is incredibly powerful, but her power's nature isn't really offensive. It's not made for killing and destroying. If it was just about raw power, I'm sure she could take down Ascended. But her power's not designed for that, and we don't have enough details about how it works to say for sure if she could go toe-to-toe offensively against one of them. The thing is, unlike the previous Karmas, this current one, Darha, has a different idea of what to do with her power. She's not sticking strictly to the whole peace thing and has decided to get involved in the fights. So, as Riot updates her lore, we'll probably learn more and more about her power. But for now, she stays here in the maybe category. Moving on, we got LeBlanc. LeBlanc is in pretty much the same spot as Swain. We have no idea how powerful she actually is, but she's an extremely ancient being with absolutely insane manipulation and influence feats. Her presence and existence alone have changed a ton of stuff in Runeterra. Like, just the fact that she sealed Mordekaiser basically altered all of Runeterra. We're not even sure if she's human anymore, since she's been alive for centuries, but that's something you can do with magic, so I'll still count her as human. We literally don't know if she's just moderately powerful but crazy manipulative, or if she's like demon level, primordial tier, powerful, and just manipulates things for fun. But I'm leaning toward the same thing as Swain. A character this smart and shady probably isn't weak and definitely has some tricks up her sleeve. So maybe she's got a shot against an Ascended. But if she's actually some non-human being or has some super crazy hidden power we don't know about, then yeah, maybe she's way stronger than we think. In the end though, this is just a maybe. And with that, we're done with the champions who might be able to solo gods. None of them really get past the level of Ascended, but that's kinda expected. If a character could solo, like a Freljordian demigod, they'd definitely be able to solo an Ascended too. So they wouldn't be here. They'd be in the next category. Now, going to the champions who can definitely solo gods. But before we get into this category, drop a like and subscribe. Alright, now moving on to the ones who could beat the gods. Let's start with Syndra. Syndra's in a situation kinda similar to Karma, where to me she's not as powerful as Karma, but the difference is that her power is totally focused on destruction, killing, obliterating, period. She was made to wipe out anything in her path, so I truly believe she could take down an Ascended in a 1 versus 1, because her power is just way too strong. Obviously, it depends on the matchup. Like, I don't think she'd beat Xerath, for example, but overall, I'm sure she'd beat most of them. I also think she could take down some Darkins that are kinda mid, since her magic is super destructive, and some of the weaker Darkins just wouldn't have enough healing power to survive. Obviously, if we're talking about an Aatrox or a super stacked Zolani, she wouldn't stand a chance, but put her up against the weakest Darkin out there, and she's got a shot. If we're talking about aspects, I don't think she'd stand a chance at all, especially against someone like Zoe. But maybe against one of the weaker, kinda mid-tier aspects, she's got a tiny chance. But like, nah, she probably wouldn't win. That said, moving on, next up is Zilean. Zilean is the most insane time mage that exists, and time magic is just one of the craziest things there is. Even though he doesn't have any actual combat feats in the lore, he's just out here traveling through the past, present, and future like it's nothing. His story even says that not even the Ascended are immune to time. They're just more resistant to it. So considering his power level, it's totally believable that he could just stop time or age an Ascended to death. Like, imagine Renekton charges at him and out of nowhere, boom, Zilean freezes him in time, waits like 15 seconds, and Renekton just ages, dies, and turns to dust. Zilean's a total beast, man. He's insane. To me, he could easily deal with all the Ascended and Darkins, maybe with the exception of Zolani, because she's really hyped up, and Xerath, who's probably one of the few that transcends time since he's kinda just pure magic at this point. I'm not totally sure how he'd match up against other aspects, but if they're in the same category as the Ascended, where they're not immune to time but just more resistant, then I think he'd beat all of them too except for Zoe. Now, if they're totally immune, he'd probably lose. Same thing with super powerful spirits like Kindred or the demigods, he'd probably beat some spirits, like Janna. But if we go really deep, like against Kindred or the primordial demons, he'd just get wrecked, for real. Anyway, moving on. Next up we got Nyla. This one's not even a mystery. A lot of people don't like her because she kinda came out of nowhere, with a pretty simple lore where it feels like they really forced her to be strong as hell. But unfortunately, whether you like her or not, she's actually super strong. She has a portion of the power of a primordial demon and a ton of insane feats, like defeating super ancient powerful dragons that were literal legends in Cathkin, and even fighting and surviving against Volibear, who's a being totally out of reach for all the other characters I've mentioned so far. Up to now, everyone I talked about would basically get turned to dust in Volibear's presence, but she fought him and survived. For sure, she'd crush any Ascended or Darkin that comes her way, except maybe Zolani if she's super stacked. She'd beat all the aspects too, except for Zoe, and she'd basically beat all the spirits like Janna, but she wouldn't stand a chance against Kindred or the other primordial demons. And I'd even say she'd probably have solid chances against some of the other demigods. In a one-on-one between her and one of the unknown demigods, I'd bet on her. For those who don't know, besides Ornn, Anivia, Volibear, and their seal sister, there are other demigods that we haven't been introduced to yet, because they've basically been forgotten over time. And the power of these creatures, these demigods and spirits, depends on how much they're worshipped. So she fought Volibear, who's super worshipped right now and one of the most powerful out there. There are debates on who's stronger at the moment, him or Ornn, since Ornn was stronger in the past. But these unknown demigods are way weaker than Volibear, Ornn, and Anivia, so I honestly believe she'd have a chance against any of them, making her the first character on this list who could take down one of the demigods. Sorry to anyone who doesn't like her, but she's just way too strong. Moving on, now we've got Atreus. He's obviously not a regular human, but I wanted to put him here on the list because he's badass, and his whole theme is about being just a human among gods and celestials. Just the fact that Atreus managed to climb Mount Targon is already an insane feat, but he's got something that really proves his strength. He defeated Aatrox. Yeah, it was a total surprise attack, and Aatrox was already wounded from fighting the Celestial of War, but that doesn't change the fact that Atreus managed to take down the second strongest Darkin. His powers are super simple. He just walks up and hits people, but at the end of the day, that's extremely effective against most enemies here. Like, I don't know, Ascendids like Renekton? He'd easily beat them. Same with most Darkins. He'd just walk up, throw hands, and win, you know? He wouldn't be able to handle the really busted ones like Aatrox or a stacked Zolani, but against the weaker ones, he'd win easily. Against a spirit like Janna? Yeah, he'd beat her too, but against demigods and celestials? Nah, that ain't happening, at least not for now. But hey, I've got faith that the man's gonna get a power-up and become the most powerful aspect of all. He is the aspect of war after all, come on! Anyway, moving on to the last one in the category of those who'd beat the gods, Ryze. This one's no mystery to anyone. With the power of the world runes that this human carries, he'd easily put the Ascended, the Darkins, the Spirits, and even the demigods in his pocket, and probably even some Celestials. Obviously not beings like Aurelion Sol or Bard, but still, the dude is insane. Like, y'all realize that Aatrox lost to Zolani and got absorbed, and then right after that, Kaelin Morgana's mom also lost to Zolani and got absorbed too? That made Zolani basically a god. She was the absolute strongest being in Runeterra at the time. Not even the second strongest of Targon could do anything against her. And then Ryze just showed up and solved the problem. The dude literally has the greatest feat in Runeterra on his resume. He's basically a god in human form. The guy's insane. No way to deny it. In the end, Ryze is basically Runeterra's protagonist. But anyway, let's move on to the honorable mentions. First up, we've got Jax. Jax already defeated and ascended in the lore. A lot of people love using that as an argument to say he's like the strongest human ever, but that doesn't make any sense at all. Not only is it not confirmed anywhere that he's human, even the wiki says he might be a Shuriman sand troll or something since he was modified as hell. But even if he was human, he's not anymore. Like, the dude doesn't even have 5 fingers. Plus, the way people talk about it, it's like he went into a 1 versus 1 against an ascended and won. But nah, it was him and his whole battalion of dozens of the most badass, well-trained soldiers, and if I'm not mistaken, they all died. They only won because of a trap and an opportunity where they dropped an entire mountain on top of the Ascended. So it's not like he just walked into an arena and beat an Ascended straight up. Y'all really hype up this old man too much. Obviously, Jax is on a totally different power level now compared to back in Acathia. It's been like, what, 3,000 years of him doing nothing but traveling and fighting. So nowadays, he'd definitely be able to solo Ascendeds, but I just don't think he gets past that. Maybe he could beat some weaker Darkins, but against an Aatrox, an Aspect, a Celestial, or a Demigod? Nah, he'd get absolutely wrecked. He's just not that guy, folks. Accept it. But anyway, I'd put him as a human who can solo gods, but since we don't even know what his race is, he might even be a sand troll. And even if he used to be human, he clearly isn't anymore. I decided to just leave him here as an honorable mention. Moving on to the next honorable mention, we got Lissandra. She's one of those that could totally kill gods, but she's not exactly human. She's a Iceborn. To me, even though the Iceborn are magically modified humans, if you're born with bloodline powers that are passed down and stuff, it stops being just a power and becomes a whole race. It's not like they're born human and then modified. They're born Iceborn, so it's basically a separate race. A fantasy example would be elves, but since she was human like 9,000 years ago, I think it's fair to put her here as an honorable mention, even though nowadays she's an Iceborn. Anyway, the reason she's here, like I said, is because she's got 9,000 years under her belt, insanely powerful magic, the Black Ice, and control over a huge part of Freljord, plus a super stacked army of warriors basically created by her, and insane feats like keeping the Watchers sealed all this time. For those who don't know, the Watchers are some of the scariest beings in Runeterra. They're what's behind the Void, like the ultimate Void bosses. And it's Lissandra that's keeping them sealed deep in the Howling Abyss, so she'd easily handle any Ascended or Darkin that comes at her. Obviously, maybe not Aatrox or Zolani. I also think she'd beat any aspect except Zoe, and she'd beat spirits like Janna too. Obviously, she wouldn't beat Kindred, the primordial demons and stuff like that, but she could probably take Janna. But yeah, against a demigod like Volibear, not a chance, and I don't even need to mention Celestials. But that's basically it. See you in the next video.